When stress hits, then you have a tool to intentionally look at it and go, ooh, I can feel it. I need to be this.
Yes.
And that's how you start to apply that intentionality.
Instead of defaulting. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome to the Leader Lab. This is Leadership Shorts, quick thoughts to help you level up your leadership. My name is Chad Wright. I'm the founder of Forward Partners, and I'm joined, as always, by my partner in podcasting, Emily Grace Deal. Emily Grace Deal, what are we talking about today?
Well, everyone obviously has a different leadership style.
Yes.
Right? So is there a certain leadership style that is better than the rest?
Yes, the ones who are nice and pay you a lot of money.
We can agree.
Yes, we can all agree on that. That's what we're after in leadership style. I think it's kind of like personality. Like there is not one that's better or worse. There is simply healthy and unhealthy. And I think leadership styles can be very similar. Mm-hmm. There are some healthy things that leaders do, and then there's some unhealthy things they do. And I think part of our problem is, and kind of like last time we talked about preemptively creating the culture of your organization.
Yeah.
I think we also have to be very intentional about creating our leadership style. What do we want it to be? Mm-hmm. Because for most of us, I think it starts as a combination of what we've experienced in the past. And let's be honest, our organization wouldn't be growing this fast if the world was filled with great leaders. The world's filled with a lot of unhealthy leaders. We have probably experienced some of that. Mm-hmm. We've had some good leaders. We've had some pretty unhealthy ones.
Well, and it's the joke of that stereotypical boss that doesn't understand or doesn't listen to you and that kind of thing.
Yes.
And that it's easy to joke about because we've all kind of experienced it at one point or another.
Yes.
But then if we just take that to heart and think that's the best way to lead and
Yeah.
then do that ourselves because we don't know any other way.
Well, and what I'm thinking about too is it probably manifests a lot in stressful times. Mm-hmm. So we are going to default to whatever we've experienced before. And if we've experienced some good things, that's good. But if we've got the more challenging things, often that happens in times of stress.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so the fear is when we're doing great, it's easy to be a good leader. Mm-hmm. But when we're not, when the things really start to go wrong and we are really waking up at 4 a.m. and we can't go back to sleep because all the challenges we're facing in those seasons, it's so much easier to default to the negative things that we've experienced before. Things that we look at and like as we're experiencing them, we would be like, I would never lead this way. And then we look up in a decade and we're leading and we might be leading that way.
Yeah.
We've seen things that our parents have done, right? Your parents have done things. My parents, all of us that have parents, they've done things. I guess we all have parents in some way.
Yes.
Sorry, it's an odd thing I said. They've done things and there have been things we look at and go, oh man, I'm never going to do that. And then we look up as we're parenting and it's like, oh, I say that same thing all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's very similar with leadership. And it's just choosing, I think, to be healthy, to be intentional.
It's the intentionality piece to a lot of things and making the choice, and it applies here too, is making the conscious choice on how you're going to do things in good times and in bad times and hard times, and making that choice no matter what instead of defaulting to.
Well, and we often need a very simple definition of things in order to have a goal, right? What do I want to be? We talk about our definition of healthy leadership, our definition of thriving teams. I think there's something to sitting down and writing out, what type of leader do you want to be? Mm-hmm. How do you want to handle challenging times? How do you want to communicate with your people? And ultimately, this gives you something to aspire to. We have leaders write the thing all the time. The question is, what's the story you want people to believe about you when they meet you? And what that does is, would you write it out? You want them to believe something good about you. It also then gives you something to aspire to be that in every situation. And I think leadership style-wise, it's the same. Write it out. How do you want your people to experience you? And ultimately, that then gives you a guide to say, can I be this more often than not? When stress hits, then you have a tool to intentionally look at it and go, ooh, I can feel it. I need to be this.
Yes.
And that's how you start to apply that intentionality.
Instead of defaulting, yeah.
Yeah, instead of defaulting. Because I'm just amazed how often when I've got leaders who have a pretty rough leadership style, it's unhealthy, we'll say, I'll have them describe leaders they've had in the past, and they start describing that exact leadership style. And then we start to get into, okay, how did you feel when that leader was above you? Talk to me about those interactions. Mm-hmm. What did you walk away feeling? And when they start really digging into it, they start to go, yeah, I don't want that.
I see.
Yeah, you almost need that reminder. And I've talked to people that we've worked with that, they've had decades of people experiencing a pretty rough version of them. And they start to change, and people just instantly start to notice this change. They're like, oh my gosh, there's something happening here. And a lot of that is just shift in leadership style. It's us getting healthy.
Well, and just like that, like the comfort of the default, right?
Yeah.
Like knowing that this is how it is because it's how it's always been.
Yes.
And being open to change is kind of what is a big piece of that too.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's not going to be easy, but you can make choices and to make things better.
Yes. It goes back to that growth path thing of constantly being okay with more and better and growing in our perspective. So I think it's just really important that we have a responsibility and an opportunity as leaders to set our leadership style intentionally, to say, what do I want to do? So leaders, let's talk next steps. I think you need to really think through your leadership style, and I would encourage you to sit down and answer the question, how do you want your people to experience you? What type of leader do you want to be? When they walk away from an interaction with you, what do you want them to feel? You have so much impact on how your team goes home, of the quality of them in their personal life. How good of a mother or father are they? Some of that is based on how they feel when they leave your presence each day. How did you leave them? And so you want to really be intentional about that, to make sure that you are aspiring to something good and something healthy. And so I would encourage you to do that. Don't just let your leadership style be a combination of some of the good and some of the bad. Let's leave the bad out. We have that ability. And so I would encourage you to do that. All right. If people want to send us questions, if they want to send us their descriptions of their leadership style, which I would love to receive, where do they send these to?
To lab@forwardpartners.net.
lab@forwardpartners.net. If they want to find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, where we're putting out content all the time about healthy leadership development, where do they find that?
@ForwardPartner.
@ForwardPartner. You can like on all those social platforms. Thank you, Emily, for this conversation.
Thank you.
John, Porchlight Productions Vineyard, thank you for partnering with us on this podcast. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. It means the world. We will see you next time right here in the Leader Lab for Leadership Shorts.